Climate change. Despite the noise and debate, there does seem to be a degree of consensus. Human activity is contributing directly to the change in the Earth's climate. The question isn't whether these activities will cause climate change, but when, where and how these changes will take place. I'm here with Professor Bob Watson, an advisor to the UK and US government in environmental policies, and also at the University of East Anglia, to seek out some of the answers to climate change. Well, Professor, welcome.
Thank you.
Climate change is undoubtedly a fact, but is it man-made or is it just the Earth going through a natural cycle?
Well, as you say, there is no doubt the Earth's climate is changing. So what we've asked ourselves, can we explain those changes on natural phenomena, changes in the output of the sun, changes in volcanic activity, or can we show that it can only be caused by human activity, the emissions of greenhouse gases and other changes in the Earth's environment? We cannot simulate the observed changes of the Earth's climate over the last 100 years on natural phenomena alone, and it's led the scientific community to say that at the 90% level we're sure that most of the observed change is due to us humans, basically putting more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere in the way we produce and use our energy, the way we've deforested our lands.
With regular failures of forecasting, with leaked emails clouding the facts, and with a powerful lobby deriding the phenomena itself, how can the public be persuaded to trust the claims of scientists in regard to climate change?
It's again a very good question to ask. The mistakes in the IPCC were not acceptable, but when you actually analyse it, there were 4 sentences that were poorly phrased out of 3,000 pages of text. Everyone is fallible. It meant the authors that wrote those sentences on the Himalayan glaciers, on the reduction in agricultural productivity in northern Africa, it failed and we didn't catch it in the peer review system. But the basic science is absolutely solid. The leaked emails from the University of East Anglia also do not undermine the very vast amount of information that demonstrates the Earth's climate is changing, that we humans are implicated, and some of the implications will have adverse effects on food, water, energy and human security. But we've got to do a much better job as scientists of portraying to the public what do we know and why, what's still uncertain and what are the implications of uncertainty. So we have to up our game on communicating our knowledge base.
The low carbon economy, is it really achievable, or is the pain and cost going to be too much for mankind to bear?
A low carbon economy is absolutely essential if we want to stop major changes in the Earth's climate, and it is certainly achievable. There is no doubt we can produce our energy much more efficiently with far less emissions of greenhouse gases, more renewable energy. When we produce energy from fossil fuels, capture the carbon dioxide and store it in depleted oil wells, gas mines before it's emitted to the atmosphere. We can certainly make our buildings much more efficient. We can have cars that eventually become electric cars. So there's no doubt in the production and use of energy we can absolutely go low carbon. There will be initial costs in getting those more expensive technologies, but in the long term avoiding climate change will be much cheaper than adapting to climate change. Nick Stern wrote a superb report a couple of years ago, and he argued that if we allowed climate change to occur, the world could lose 5 to 20% of gross domestic product versus trying to stabilise at around 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. It would cost the world potentially 2 to 3% of GDP. Even if its numbers were slightly wrong, you still come to a bottom line that the cost of action is less than the cost of inaction, but there are some upfront costs.
Given the failure of Copenhagen, it's obvious that mankind is having problems meeting the challenge of climate change. Are we going to have to just put up with the fact that we will have significant climate change on our hands in the future?
Some change is absolutely inevitable. There is no question. The Earth's climate of the 2020s and 2030s is already preordained by the emissions that we've already put into the atmosphere. So we're inevitably going to see 1.5 or so degrees temperature increase, with potentially adverse consequences for certain sectors in certain parts of the world. And so the key challenge is, can we limit future climate change. The goal that aspired out of Copenhagen and has always been argued in Europe was to try and limit climate change to 2 degrees Celsius relative to pre-industrial. I think this is a major stretch target. To limit to 2 degrees Celsius, we need action now from every major emitter around the world. We would need our global emissions to peak between 2015 and 2020. And without a Copenhagen type agreement, we're not going to peak our emissions between 2015 and 2020, which is why I argue we need to try and mitigate to 2, but start to understand how would we mitigate, how would we adapt to a 4 degree warmer world.
The impact of climate change is not just environmental. What do you see as the significant side effects in terms of society, economics, or even security?
The key challenges: food security, water security, and human security. And that is to say, climate change poses a major threat to our ability to feed the world. We will need major changes in agricultural productivity to meet a growing population, a wealthier population. Therefore, we're going to need seeds that are temperature, drought, salinity, pest resistant. We're going to need seeds that are more nitrogen and radiation use efficient. Therefore, science and technology will be important. We're going to have to manage our water much more efficiently. We're going to have to put some economic value on our water in many places, otherwise the scarce resource is just wasted. But I am concerned that we could also have an insecurity of human dimensions. That is to say, in some parts of the world, climate change could add to other stresses such as poverty, such as religious tension, such as increases in adverse health effects, insecure food, insecure water, sea level rise, potentially displacing people. So we need to deal with climate change in the context of all the other stresses on the world to alleviate poverty, to make sure that the average person in the world has a decent lifestyle with adequate food, adequate clean water, adequate energy.
Great. Professor Watson, thank you very much.
Thank you.